Hello, I'm Bakhtiar Sanova and you are watching A News Now. Let's take you through today's top stories. Hamas hands over 3 more hostage bodies. Turkey to host Gaza peace talks on Monday amid ceasefire concerns. 6.3 magnitude earthquake in Afghanistan kills dozens. The handover of 3 Israeli hostage bodies by Hamas has intensified disputes over the pace of the ceasefire deal. Israel accuses Hamas of stalling, while Hamas says rubble and war damage slow recovery efforts. With 8 more deceased hostages believed to remain in Gaza, mediators are pressing both sides to honor the U.S.-brokered ceasefire.
A convoy carrying the bodies of Israeli hostages arrived at Israel's National Forensic Institute in Tel Aviv on Sunday. The bodies were handed over by Hamas as part of the ongoing ceasefire process. However, both sides blame each other for breaking the fragile agreement that has largely stopped 2 years of fighting. The Israeli military confirmed receiving 3 coffins from the Red Cross. If confirmed as the deceased hostages, the bodies of 8 Israeli and foreign captives still remain in Gaza. The 3 bodies are believed to be among 11 whose remains Israel expects to receive under the terms of the US-brokered ceasefire. Hamas's armed wing, the Al-Qassam Brigades, said the remains were found along a tunnel route in southern Gaza earlier on Sunday. Israel has accused Hamas of delaying the transfers, while Hamas says it is working under difficult conditions to recover remains trapped under rubble. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu said all families of hostages have been informed, adding that efforts to bring every hostage home will not cease until the last one is returned. Earlier, A News spoke with Rotem Cooper, the son of one of the hostages, whose father's coffin was among those returned to Israel on Sunday. Under the first phase of the ceasefire deal, launched on the 10th of October, Hamas agreed to release 20 living hostages, which it has done, and 28 deceased captives. So far, 20 bodies have been handed over. Meanwhile, Red Cross and Egyptian search teams entered Gaza City's Shujaiya area to recover more remains. They were given permission to work beyond the yellow line, which marks Israel's military pullback zone.
Foreign Minister of Turkey Hakan Fidan will host a key meeting in Istanbul today with counterparts from several Muslim-majority nations to discuss the Gaza ceasefire and the humanitarian crisis. The talks are expected to bring together ministers from Turkey, the UAE, Indonesia, Qatar, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia and Jordan. Fidan is set to call for stronger international pressure to ensure aid commitments are met, as he says current humanitarian aid is insufficient. He will also push for coordinated action among Muslim nations to turn the ceasefire into lasting peace. U.S. President Donald Trump said on Sunday that he is not seriously considering supplying Ukraine with long-range Tomahawk missiles. He also expressed skepticism about the plan for the United States to sell Tomahawks to NATO nations, which would then transfer them to Ukraine, saying he doesn't want to escalate the war.
Administration provide Ukraine with long-range Tomahawk missiles. Is that something that you're not considering that?
No, not really.
In the United Kingdom, a man is in custody after an attack on a train from Doncaster to London King's Cross, which stopped in Huntington on Saturday evening. 11 people were taken to hospital and 5 have since been discharged. Police have increased their presence at major rail stations including London, Birmingham, Leeds, York and Manchester, and this is expected to continue until at least Tuesday. Another man initially arrested at the scene was released after being cleared of any involvement. Authorities say the motive is unknown, but do not believe the attack was linked to terrorism. Tensions escalated outside Serbia's parliament on Sunday after thousands of protesters rallied behind a grieving mother demanding justice. Demonstrators were marking the first anniversary of a roof that collapsed at a railway station in Novi Sad last year that killed 16 people.
Flares were used as tens of thousands of protesters in Serbia's capital ran and shouted as tensions escalated in support of Dijana Hrka, a mother whose child died in last year's Novi Sad railway station roof collapse. She began a hunger strike early Sunday, determined to hold the government to account. Officers formed cordons to separate opposing groups in Belgrade as unrest spread through nearby streets, marking the first anniversary of the tragic event. Police prevented Hrka from entering the area controlled by pro-government supporters who have camped outside the building since March. Months of demonstrations across the country have shaken President Alexander Vucic's long hold on power, fueled by anger over the lack of prosecutions for those blamed in the disaster. Protesters expressed a mix of emotions, both frustration and solidarity.
People here are gathering to support a woman who is fighting for justice, who lost her son, who is on a hunger strike, which is the most radical measure, and the police are currently letting SNS supporters throw pyrotechnics at people and not reacting to it.
Emotions are mixed. I've seen a lot of my acquaintances, and that invokes nice, friendly emotions. And on the other hand, there are bad emotions. Emotions of anger when we see that crime is being promoted in this country under the protection of the regime, and that peaceful protesters are being attacked.
Last week, an independent commission of judges, professors and engineers reported to the European Parliament that corruption and the hiring of unqualified contractors caused the deadly collapse that killed 16 people on the 1st of November last year. The Serbian government denies these claims. President Vucic and Parliament Speaker Ana Brnabić have suggested the incident might have been an act of terrorism. 13 people, including senior officials, have been charged, but no trial has begun.
Looking to Africa, Nigeria says there is no need for U.S. troops on its soil. The comment comes after President Donald Trump warned of possible military action over alleged ill treatment of Christians.
Nigeria says it would welcome U.S. assistance in fighting Islamist insurgents, as long as its territorial integrity is respected. The statement comes after US President Donald Trump threatened military action over what he described as the mistreatment of Christians in the country. Nigeria, a nation of more than 200 million people and roughly 200 ethnic groups, is split between a largely Muslim north and mostly Christian south. Insurgent groups such as Boko Haram and Islamic State West Africa Province have killed thousands over a period of more than 15 years. Officials say Nigeria does not need American troops on its soil, but would appreciate support through military aid.
Our soldiers have the capability to deal with this thing, so we do not require the American soldiers' boots on the ground. What we need is the apparatus, the equipment, the access to some of these things that will aid our own military force and some of the paramilitary and intelligence operatives to deal with this.
Trump has also threatened to suspend all US assistance to Nigeria if the government does not act decisively to stop the killings. Meanwhile, Christian leaders in northern Nigeria voiced support for Trump's warning, but cautioned against any attempt to dictate the country's political leadership.
Nigerians must not also forget that we've also gone to other countries to tell their leaders to do right. So let's not be hypocrite in this matter. What some of us will not support is anybody deciding who should be our leader. It's purely a Nigerian thing. But if they are reminding us that what is accepted in our constitution, what is acceptable in other standards, we should do it. If we say they shouldn't, then we should also say that the Americans should have nothing to do with us. We can't receive their aid and say they shouldn't be worried about things that are going on among us.
Nigeria, with its mix of Christianity, Islam and traditional religions, has a long history of coexistence, though periodic violence often flares due to ethnic tensions and competition over scarce resources.
Moving to diplomacy, U.S. Secretary of War Pete Hegseth is visiting South Korea on Monday for talks with his South Korean counterpart. Discussions are expected to focus on Washington's push to reshape the role of U.S. troops there. The two defense chiefs will also hold the annual Security Consultative meeting on Tuesday, the top forum where both nations set the course of their military alliance. They will also discuss South Korea's defense strategy against nuclear-armed North Korea. Hegseth is also expected to visit the Panmunjom Truce village in the demilitarized zone along the North Korean border. It is the political race everyone has their eyes on. New Yorkers head to the polls in a high-stakes mayoral election, one that could reshape the city's future, with progressive Democrat Zoran Mamdani, independent former Governor Andrew Cuomo, and Republican Curtis Sliwa all in the running. The contest has become a referendum on leadership, ideology, and the city's direction.
New York City voters are heading into one of the most anticipated local elections in years, a race that could shape not only the city's future, but also the direction of the Democratic Party nationwide. The battle for City Hall has come down to three names: Democratic nominee Zoran Mamdani, independent candidate and former Governor Andrew Cuomo, and Republican Curtis Sliwa. But much of the spotlight is on the showdown between Mamdani and Cuomo, two figures representing sharply different visions for New York's future. Zoran Mamdani, a Democratic socialist and state assemblyman from Queens, has built his campaign around affordability, housing and social equality. His platform includes a rent freeze on rent-stabilized apartments, fare-free buses and redirecting parts of the city's budget towards social programs. He's drawn strong support from younger and working-class voters.
And one of the most heartbreaking things that we've all seen is someone who just cannot get enough time or energy or money together to get what they deserve, care they deserve. And we hope that when Zoran's mayor, that he can help us all do that for everyone that deserves care in the city.
Donald Trump has injected controversy into New York's mayoral race, warning that if Zoran Mamdani is elected, he could deploy the National Guard and cut federal funding, arguing that Mamdani is a communist threat to the city's stability. Andrew Cuomo, meanwhile, is seeking a political comeback after resigning as governor in 2021 amid sexual harassment allegations. Running as an independent after losing the Democratic primary, he's presenting himself as a pragmatic centrist who can restore stability and fiscal discipline to City Hall. Cuomo has criticized what he calls ideological experiments in local government and says New York needs experience over extremism. Mamdani have previously accused Cuomo of mismanaging state funds and favoring wealthy donors.
Let our words ring out so loud tonight that Andrew Cuomo can hear them in his $8,000 a month apartment.
While Cuomo claims Mamdani's policies would drive the city into chaos. Republican candidate Curtis Sliwa is running on a law and order platform, arguing the city has become less safe and less affordable. However, in a city that leans heavily Democratic, analysts say his chances remain slim, though he continues to campaign across the 5 boroughs. Issues driving the race are familiar to New Yorkers: housing, affordability, safety, migration and inequality. Both Mamdani and Cuomo have pledged to tackle rising costs, but they differ on approach. Mamdani pushing structural reform, Cuomo advocating experienced, moderate governance. Polling stations open early Tuesday morning across the city, with strong turnout expected in Queens and Brooklyn, key bases for Mamdani. While early results are expected by Tuesday night, final tallies and certification may take longer.
Welcome back to A News. The 21st IISS Manama Dialogue has wrapped up in Bahrain, highlighting new diplomatic dynamics in the Middle East. A key takeaway was the U.S. acknowledgement of Turkey's crucial role in securing the recent Gaza ceasefire. At the same time, Turkey hosts foreign ministers from 6 Muslim nations in Istanbul to coordinate further efforts for de-escalation and humanitarian relief. So what do these developments signal for the region's strategic landscape? Joining us now to unpack these shifts, from Rabat we have Gustavo Darishtegui, former diplomat and expert on Euro-Mediterranean and Middle Eastern affairs. And from Ankara we are joined by Melih Demirtas, former diplomat and senior foreign policy analyst. Gustavo Darishtegui and Melih Demirtas, thank you both for joining the program.
Our pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Hassan.
So, Ambassador Darishtegui, let's start with you. How do you assess the overall significance of the Manama Dialogue this year in shaping regional security discourse?
Well, it is already a tradition that Bahrain hosts in their branch of the International Institute for Strategic Studies, the very important summit that analyzes all the angles of the geostrategic and geopolitical situation in the world. There's a lot of challenges. This session has a particular importance because it happens after 2 years of war in Gaza. It happens after the continuous attacks of the Houthis against international trade and maritime routes in the Gulf of Aden. It happens in a moment where tensions between, for example, India and Pakistan were at a very high point, and where the Ukraine war is still raging. There are many challenges in the world today. There is a very clear and very worrying sign of proliferation: the announcement of the Poseidon underwater drone, or the Skyfall Burevestnik nuclear missile. All of these are very worrying signs, and the 700 participants of 65 nations had a very tough job trying to analyze what is really going on in the world. We are sitting on a powder keg with a smoking cigar.
So, Dr. Demirtas, Tom Barak's statement at the Manama Dialogue emphasized Turkey's indispensable role in achieving the Gaza ceasefire. From your perspective, what specific diplomatic channels or leverage enabled Turkey to play this role?
Yes, Mr. Hassanov, it is, as Mr. Ambassador said, an important platform, dialogue platform in Manama. Manama is a traditional one, and we need such platforms to talk more. As the ambassador said, that after crisis here, after all these clavages and conflicts, especially foreign ministers, ambassadors, they're really giving some important clues, important words, sentences, also to catch what will happen in this next terms, in the next coming months. Yes, Mr. Ambassador, I mean Tom Barak, both the ambassador in Ankara as a special representative also in Syria, we must also underline this, because you're also giving some important signals about the future of Middle East. First of all, he said also important things about some historical, maybe, baggages of some Western states, including, of course, United States and United Kingdom. And he also giving some signals that something will change from the side of these actors. I think Turkey, at this point, appearing an important actor, as you said, stabilizing actor. First of all, after all this maybe devastating acts of Israel, we must also underline it, because these devastating actions really shaked all these balances, not only in Palestine, in the genocidal terms in Palestine, but also in Syria, in Lebanon, even in Iran, and other some important countries in the Middle East. So we can say that, yes, especially this meeting, which will happen today in Turkey, and the serial of meetings, maybe after Mr. Trump's initiative and his leadership, we can say that something will change toward more diplomacy and toward more cooperation in this coming months.
Ambassador Darishtegui, what do you think? How might this Istanbul ministerial meeting influence the implementation of the ceasefire?
I think it's an extremely opportune initiative. Turkey has been a key player in the region, not now, but I would dare say for centuries, right? But in the last decade or two, Turkey has played a pivotal role as not only an economic regional power, but as a very powerful military stabilization presence let's not forget that Turkey is an essential partner of NATO, and as such was praised by President Trump in the Sharm el-Sheikh summit when the ceasefire was signed between the sponsors. And then, of course, the main sponsors of that ceasefire were very clearly Turkey itself, Qatar, with a very prominent role in keeping channels open even with Hamas, and having to support attacks by so many other people in a very unfair way, because they have not kept those channels open because they wanted to, but because they were requested to. And finally, of course, the essential role played by Egypt itself. I do think that if you look at the attendance, it's not just Arabs. It's of course Muslim states, that non-Arab Muslim states, and I am very, very happy and very hopeful that the presence, for example, of a phenomenal power with a new and dynamic president, Prabowo, of Indonesia, is an extremely intelligent sign forward, because Indonesia is a very important stabilization force in its region, but also in the Muslim world as a whole, as the most populous Muslim country in the planet, and a moderation force in the Muslim world.
Mr. Demirtas, United States has approached Azerbaijan with a proposal to join an international stabilization force in Gaza. What specific conditions does Azerbaijan require from a potential UN Security Council resolution in order to consider participating in a Gaza stabilization force? And how might these conditions shape the scope and mandate of the mission?
Yes, Mr. Hasanov, it's maybe important news coming a couple of days ago. Yes, after all these clavages and conflicts, we can say that we need some actors who can really have some moderate and diplomatic spirits in the region. Azerbaijan proved itself such an actor. I mean, as such an actor, it really made an important maybe regional stability, first of all in South Caucasia. And now, starting from Syria, we can say that in this Eurasia Middle Eastern line and Caucasia Middle Eastern line, maybe also Azerbaijan continues to support and contribute to this stability projects. Yes, the proposal came maybe from Trump, but I think it will also have some support from other actors. I think as the brother country, first of all, I mean Turkey will support the inclusion of any forces from Azerbaijani side. I think as an economic power, and of course social and cultural power, Azerbaijan has already proved itself as an important key player, moderate player. But now, I think with some quote-unquote hard power or military power senses, I think Azerbaijan will maybe have an important extended role also in this region. But first of all, humanitarian situations must be maybe observed so closely. I think thanks to the collaboration or maybe this special relationship between Turkey and Azerbaijan. So we can say that not only as a single country, but maybe as a representative of a greater Turkic maybe world, maybe also brothership of Turkey and Azerbaijan, can really have some also social and humanitarian aspect in this region, especially, as I said, after this 2 years of this catastrophe and this maybe as United Nations always declaring as this genocidal period, maybe Azerbaijan, such a player, can really contribute thanks to maybe also Mr. Trump's saying and support.
Ambassador Darishtegi, Special Representative Tom Barrack suggested cooperation from the Caspian to the Mediterranean. What realistic strategic or economic formats could support such a corridor?
Sorry, I was briefly disconnected. Could you repeat the question, please?
Okay, the Special Representative Tom Barrack suggested cooperation from the Caspian to the Mediterranean. What realistic strategic or economic formats could support such a corridor?
Well, first of all, we need to guarantee that the stability in the region is achieved completely, and for that purpose, I think that the long-standing conflict between Azerbaijan and Armenia and the successful mediation of President Trump has been a very important issue. But I do think that, for example, even if it's further north and in a slightly different region, the instability in Georgia or in Moldova, and of course the ongoing war in Ukraine needs to be solved so that in fact this Central Asian cooperation and stabilization force can be achieved. Let us not forget that that the Mediterranean is the passageway for many countries that are not necessarily coastal to the Mediterranean, and that the Mediterranean Sea has become a very focal point of tensions and trafficking and even war-like situations. Therefore, it is not only a responsibility of countries like Turkey or Spain or Italy or France or Greece to have a leading role, or Egypt for that much, a leading role. There are some very worrying situations of instability and uncertainties. For example, the instability in Libya that has not yet been resolved, and so many other points of conflict. Of course, the Arab-Israeli conflict that has not yet been resolved. All of these things need to be addressed seriously in order to be able to achieve a Caspian to the Mediterranean cooperation and stability. In any case, what I do want to stress in a very positive way is that, and it's not only because you are a television from Azerbaijan, but because it is the truth. The praise that the nation is receiving in the world as a very active and very important, I would say, protagonist of stability and responsibility in geopolitical and geostrategic matters is really of essential importance to the region, and it is praised and accepted and acknowledged by a majority of relevant actors around the world. And again, it is very important to state that for example, such antagonists as maybe Russia, China, or the United States have a very, very positive opinion about the role that Azerbaijan is playing in its region, and eventually outside of the region itself also.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for talking to A News. We truly appreciate your time and perspectives. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.
Welcome back to A News. Now let's take a closer look at the key stories shaping the region. At least 20 people have died after a strong earthquake struck northern Afghanistan on Monday. Local authorities say the death toll is expected to rise as rescue work continues. Hundreds have also been injured.
Most people were asleep when a 6.3 magnitude earthquake hit northern Afghanistan near Mazar-e Sharif in the early hours of Monday around 1 a.m. local time. The US Geological Survey says the quake had a depth of 28 kilometres and was given an orange alert, meaning significant casualties were likely.
It shook so violently that we couldn't even open the door. We tried 3 times to unlock it, but the shaking was too strong to manage. It lasted for about 15 seconds, and when we finally got outside, there was so much dust in the air that we couldn't see anything. My mother was trapped under the wooden beams of the roof, and my brother was buried under the rubble. With the help of the villagers and young men from our village, thank God, we managed to rescue them. They are now in the hospital.
I rescued my brother's wife along with the rest of the family, but one of us was missing. I searched desperately to find him and later realized that he was trapped under the rubble. Unfortunately, he had passed away. He had just recently gotten married.
Taliban officials announced that more than 300 residents were injured. Most injuries happened when people fell from tall buildings. The city's provincial officials warned that casualties may increase as emergency teams continue their rescue efforts. Police teams are also closely monitoring the situation. Mazar-e Sharif is one of the country's largest cities and is home to about 500,000 people. It's also home to the historic Blue Mosque, which has now been damaged. Previously, a deadly 6.0 quake in eastern Afghanistan in late August killed more than 1,000 people. Many of those fatalities were caused by rural houses made of mud and timber which collapsed.
Iran says it has started building a new nuclear power plant in the northern Golestan province, which lies along the Caspian Sea. That's according to Vice President and Chief of the Atomic Energy Organization, Mohammad Eslami. He says that Iran also plans to construct several more nuclear power plants across the country, aiming to increase national electricity production to 20,000 megawatts. Eslami says that work will also continue on a nuclear plant in Khuzestan province, which began before the 1979 Islamic Revolution. Now, Turkey and Iraq signed a new agreement on Sunday to finance joint water projects. The mechanism document was signed in Baghdad by Turkish Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan and his Iraqi counterpart Fuad Hussein. The deal aims to implement the 2024 Water Cooperation Framework Agreement between the two countries. Under the deal, Turkish companies will carry out infrastructure and modernization projects in Iraq, financed through Iraqi oil sales. Officials said the goal is to ensure efficient and sustainable use of Iraq's water resources. Turkey says the PKK's decision to end its armed campaign inside the country is a welcome step, but not enough. Foreign Minister Hakan Fidan says Ankara now expects the terrorist group to halt all activities in Iraq and Syria and withdraw from those areas. Speaking in Baghdad after talks with Iraqi leaders, Fidan said ending the PKK threat across the region is essential for lasting stability and security. For the first time, a Syrian president will visit Washington, D.C. U.S. envoy Tom Barrack confirmed that Ahmed al-Sharaa will meet Donald Trump at the White House early November. Talks will focus on Syria's possible entry into the U.S.-led coalition against the Islamic State and efforts to de-escalate tensions with Israel. The visit marks a key step in restoring ties between Damascus and the West, with discussions also touching on regional security and post-war reconstruction. Now to an environmental shock, as Lahore has once again been named as the world's most polluted city. Thick, choking smog has blanketed Pakistan's cultural capital, forcing hospitals to handle a surge in patients struggling to breathe.
Lahore is once again choking under a blanket of thick smog, topping the list of the world's most polluted cities. Pakistan's cultural capital is shrouded in a toxic haze, and hospitals are struggling to cope with a surge in patients finding it harder to breathe.
Earlier, we used to receive about 20 to 30 patients daily with respiratory problems, rhinitis, common cold and sinusitis at our outdoor medical facility. But now there are 70, 80 plus. The condition of patients with asthma is getting worse, and also common colds and allergies are on the rise. When a pregnant woman gets a cough and respiratory problem, she suffers abdominal pressure, which can cause many complications. The child will suffocate from the lack of oxygen if a woman does not breathe properly.
According to Swiss monitoring group IQ Air, Lahore was ranked the most polluted city in the world on Sunday, with air quality levels reaching the very unhealthy range, at times nearing 400 on the air quality index. Doctors say the crisis is already taking a toll on the city's most vulnerable, especially children, the elderly and pregnant women. But despite the suffocating air, many residents refuse to give up their daily routines. At cricket grounds and local parks, people try to hold on to small moments of normal life, even under the thick grey sky.
If exercising and playing in cricket grounds can help us breathe better despite the smog, that's a great facility. The government should develop and maintain the remaining grounds in Lahore, not destroy them.
The Punjab government says it has deployed anti-smog guns and water sprinklers to control the dust. Every winter, Lahore's plain geography and cold air trap pollutants from vehicles, factories and crop burning, turning the city into a cloud of grey. For millions, it's becoming a season not of cool winds, but of breathless days and restless nights.
Welcome back to A News. Iran says it has begun constructing a new nuclear power plant on the Caspian coast in Golestan province, with plans to expand nuclear electricity production to 20,000 megawatts. President Pezeshkian also says Iran will rebuild damaged nuclear facilities with greater power, while denying any pursuit of nuclear weapons. Comments made as U.S. President Donald Trump warns of further attacks if Tehran advances its nuclear program. Joining us now is Associate Professor Dr. Zaur Gassimov from the Turkish Jami University in Istanbul, Turkey. Mr. Gassimov, welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me here.
Mr. Gassimov, Iran has announced the construction of a new nuclear power plant in Golestan province. What is the strategic significance of its location on the Caspian coast?
It's an interesting issue. Iran is significantly weakened during this year, and Iran lost the positions in the entire region of the Middle East. The system of Iranian proxies like Hezbollah and other parties in neighboring countries, in Lebanon, in Syria, in Iraq, not liquidated. The networks still exist, but they are significantly weakened due to the Israel-led operations. And also the conduction of military operations on Iranian soil by bombing down the nuclear facilities. Iran not only got weakened with regard to its authority in the region of the Middle East, but tries now to make steps to restore somehow its facilities to a certain level, like it was before Israel-led operations. The decision to build a new nuclear plants, maybe also enrichment facilities in Golestan province, which is actually in the northeastern part of Iran. It's close to the border with Turkmenistan, and it's at the seashore of the Caspian Sea, is very important due to Iranian-Russian cooperation, because these nuclear plants, if they would be built with the Russian support.
Mr. Gassimov, President Pezeshkian says the nuclear program remains civilian. In your view, how credible is this claim based on current monitoring and transparency measures?
You know, currently Iran has been facing with large-scale economic problems. The air pollution beats all records. There is a discourse about relocation of the capital even, because Tehran is really literally not able anymore to host the capital in it. What we see now is the concessions that the political regime in Tehran was obliged to do with regard to the civil society, also to the Iranian society, with regard of the trade codes and so on in the public. Pezeshkian also, but much more than Pezeshkian himself, the religious leadership of Iran tries to make some steps that would forge international cooperation. The restart of the nuclear program, as it is seen by Iranian leaders, would give an additional leverage maybe in its discussions, negotiations with the West, and also would deepen the cooperation with Russia. It should be mentioned that Tehran has a special treaty. It's not an all-around treaty with Russia. This treaty omitted military cooperation in sense of defense issues, but still there is a very, very fruitful, very efficient, very intensive cooperation in the field of nuclear energy. And for Russia, I would see it in the same way. For Russia to cooperate now with Iran is also an attempt to get an additional leverage on the West, on US, first of all, saying, look, we can boost your adversary in the region of the Middle East, and we can back the project. Iran alone wouldn't be able to build up those nuclear plants. The nuclear plant and enrichment facilities in the south of the country, in the city of Bushehr, have been built also with direct support of the Russian specialists, of Russian engineers, etc.
So Iran also says it will rebuild damaged nuclear facilities with greater power. What message is Tehran sending with that statement?
I would see that in a way. I mean, it would be strange if they would say we would rebuild it, but with a less capacity, or we would try to restore it as it was. Of course, certain superlative discourse or vocabulary is typical, particularly for the clerical leadership of the country, of course, it's a certain message to the West. It's a message to Israel and also to the countries of the region that Iran undertakes steps to come back to its position it used to have just 3-4 years ago. But after the collapse of the regime of Bashar al-Assad in Syria, and after the dismantlement, not 100% dismantlement, but still a quite heavy blow against the proxies of Iran in the region of the Middle East, Tehran was and is confronted with a huge security-related identity crisis and tries to somehow to rebuild the facilities around the nuclear reactors and uranium enrichment facilities.
And US President Donald Trump warned he would order further attacks if Iran advances nuclear operations. Could these developments bring Iran and the United States closer to confrontation, or is there still space for negotiation?
Of course. Of course, in case, I mean, that would take time to restore the facilities to the level that would somehow correspond with the situation Iran had, let us say, a year ago. That would take time. And in case if Iran would approach to that level, just let us leave aside the possibilities of getting stronger or to come to 90% of the enrichment of uranium or stuff like that. I'm sure that the United States would take measures and take steps in order to hinder that. That, by the way, actually a huge problem. So even in case of covered construction sites and covered nuclear plants, like the sample of North Korea demonstrated ago, Iran could go this way and dump of I guess the of the West would be rapid, and I mean it's the US B-2 bombers just to destroy covertly buried sites in fact. So that would be, and in order to create that, in order even to restore the bombed down facilities in Natanz and in other places, that would take time and take efforts.
Mr. Gasimov, is the international monitoring regime, particularly the IAEA, still able to effectively assess Iran's nuclear activities at this stage?
We know that Iran expelled commission of the International Atomic Energy Organization agency, and used the eventual restart of the negotiations with that organization as bridge. But with the time, particularly now at the end of 2025, the possibilities of maneuvering of Iran are very, very limited. not only about the dismantlement of the system, it is also a different situation around Iran, with the smooth changing of the country, which Iran was cooperating still 6-7 years ago in all possible fields. But quite new situation that emerged around it. And don't forget also a very special issue. If the Western countries would conduct military operation against the facilities on the Iranian soil, that would be conducted by airspace, and Iran does not possess any anti-missile protection system. The system that shaped himself is obviously able to intercept drones and to intercept military airplanes, which just can enter the Iranian airspace they want, and to carry whatever they want on the Iranian soil. So Russia didn't sell the S-400 systems, which could provide certain protection for the airspace. So the possibilities of maneuvering for Iran are very good in this regard.
Professor Zaur Gasumov, thank you very much for your insights and analysis. We truly appreciate your time and perspective. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
You're up to date with world news for the hour. Thank you for watching and stay tuned to A News.